curator at the National Olympic Committee in the Netherlands. Please help us welcome Bernard Hilgers. Interesting, because you say, and a lot of people think, that a lot of people are interested in sports, but they're not interested in history, sports history. But I think anyone who's interested in sports already has an inbuilt appreciation for history, even if it's their own lifetime. Or sometimes it's their parents' lifetime, you know, be it the mother or the father, and you know, if they're lucky enough to have grandparents to help them relay those histories. And that's, you know, anyone in their teens or 20s onward, they have a few decades of those memories within them. That's such an integral part of their identity. And that's just, you know, very, very ordinary, like even non-sports following people, right? And that's like millions and millions, and I would say billions of people. And when you talk about sports fans who are interested in the sports, but not the history, but they already are oral historians, and some go back, you know, years, some decades of memorizing and learning about the background of, you know, their particular team, their particular the stadium. So many untapped sports history, sports museum fans out there. We just need to reach them. I think it's the bridge that's the challenge. And just the concept of museums, which is, you know, it's totally elitist. You know, we talked a little bit about that. Actually, I did more than you did. Confession.
You're quite right. You're quite right. Everybody loves history because they have their background, and so it's the challenge to reach out. You're right. You must touch them on the right note, and then they like history because they are history themselves. And yeah, you're quite right. But it's challenging. It's challenging. Yeah.
I think the mediation is because it's sports history, sports museums, and the public, they're mediated by this concept of very elitist museums and academia, which has come and filtered, kind of like it's a blockade between the two. And I think lifting that and saying, like, but a lot of people go to halls of fames or museums who would not go to museums. So I think it's just correcting that, the filter, kind of like the wall, the blockade. I think that's our biggest challenge.
Yeah, we are lucky with NSC that because we have to do with now and the past. So we have agreed to make a virtual Dutch digital Olympic museum, and we start with now. And we like to challenge them to look at the past. And it's exactly how you said, and they can choose to stop and to go on with their search for history, or search for interesting facts. And it's therefore we have possibility to mix it, because we have content of now and of the past. And we like to make an extra layer on top of the sports events of nowadays, and not only the people watching, but also the athletes themselves. Because when also the athletes are more realizing how rich our Olympic history, Dutch Olympic history, they will be more touched to the event and doing their best.
I mean, again, like sports history in particular, what you do, which is with the National Olympic collection and committee, it's a social history of the Netherlands, in your case, as seen through the eyes of sports. So talk a little bit about that, of how you approach the collections in your care, and which go back to, I mean, NOC Netherlands was founded in 1900. It's a really long time. So just talk a little bit about how you approach the collections as a as a social historian?
First, of course, we have our objects, and they are less. Sometimes they tell stories just by looking at them, but most of them don't tell stories directly. Some collections are some objects are so iconic that they talk much more than others. Most likely that you have to give a story with the object. And our approach is in the last 5 years to always tell story with the text, the object, but also with or oral history or video footage. Because I say sport is movement, it's acting. So when just looking at a dead object, people are not motivated. And besides that fact, I think also because of film and audio, people are more drawn into the history themselves, and they get more touched to look at objects, to know things. And yeah, that's the fun thing about web, television, all kinds of apps and telephones. So it gives extra possibilities that weren't even there 10, 20 years ago. When we looked at some objects in the middle of there were many possibilities to show footage, to show film, and now they can watch and look at the objects. It's very. I feel very lucky to live in this time. So we have those extra possibilities. And when we don't have a museum, but when we have a museum, it will not give possibilities to get audiences in the whole of the Netherlands and also beside our borders. So when having a digital and virtual museum, our reach to audiences is much more greater. I found it also very challenging to get our sport heritage over our borders. Because the Olympic movement is worldwide. So while we get it all over the globe. Yeah.
One of the challenges, I mean, there's so many challenges with the pandemic right now, and some will change the way we do things for a long time, if not forever. We talked briefly last time about some of the good things that are coming out, which is the focus on creating virtual data and digitizing collections. And for the mostly gentlemen and some ladies on the top who sign the checks to allocate resources, I think they're just beginning to realize how incredibly important it is to allocate resources for archives to be digitized and to focus on things that otherwise it would not have happened before. And this is happening everywhere. For example, I spoke with a gentleman at Brazil National Olympic Committee, and they're starting a Hall of Fame, sort of like a museum like for the Olympic history in Brazil. And you're doing the same. Do you want to talk a little bit about this Olympic museum, virtual Olympic museum that you're talking about, and how that's going?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have also about 5 years, I think, plan of getting an Olympic digital virtual Olympic museum. But the funding is the most difficult part. But also, what is your goal with the museum? And we now more or less have that very good formulated. And because of the corona, the development of digital has exploded, and many museums in the Netherlands have put on Twitter, Facebook, virtual museums. So there's a spinning off. There's much energy. So, and I think we can move up with our own ideas to get it more more possibilities of funding. We like to get everybody involved with sport and on. So we do not like to do this project all by ourselves. So we like to get partners to let it grow together. And I think that Corona will make this more and faster possible. Yeah.
Speaking of getting people involved with sports, you're also doing a museum mobile, which I love the idea. And I think every museum should have, train loads of their collections going around the country, major museums and major collections, not just museums, just to expose people who are not, they don't have access to major cities, especially now with the pandemic and the effects of it for years to come. So talk about the museum mobile.
Yeah. I think 2 years ago we developed a concept, and that's called the Olympic Pop-Up Museum. It contains 3 displays on foot, and it can contain about 10 objects each. So it gives us the possibility to make exhibits for short periods. The Pop-Up Museum has a high standard, with good lighting. If people can watch, can look up, and it gives us the possibility to get our heritage on the spot where it's needed, and just from short time, and with a high exposure rate. So it gives a lot of satisfaction to get those few objects, but on very good events and with many people. So that's great. That's great. The Olympic Pop-Up Museum fits in my own car. I have to put it up myself, and also put it in the car back. But I can do that in a few hours. So it's very satisfying. So I think we go on with that concept to make it better, and also to get more different display units.
Whenever I visit the Netherlands, or even go through it, I always allocate time enough in Schiphol to visit the Rijksmuseum pop-up exhibitions, which they always have, almost always, and they're fantastic. So I think you should be talking to maybe some of the representatives at Schiphol and say, well, we can have something along the along the lines, because it would be, the history of the Netherlands in the Olympics, it's very rich, very exciting. And what better way, because there's so many transition points, if not arriving at Amsterdam, but going through. So having, pop-ups at local airports may be a good idea.
You're right. I think that would be a good opportunity. I think also a good time to get them to talk to them. Yeah, I will do that. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for watching. We hope you consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and following Gisha and Gisha TV and your preferred social media platforms. You will find the links down below. See you soon.